Dames en heren, kunt u mij een beetje horen? In dit weer kun je erbij zeggen dat we een beetje warm moeten lopen. En hoe meer mensen hier zijn, hoe warmer het wordt. Het is een groot genoegen. It is a big honor to welcome you, Saul Leiter, Twan Huis, Howard Greenberg, and Margaret Earp from the gallery, right? In New York, here. It is also a big thing that we are bombarded by the government to find new ways to justify our subsidy, which they will cut anyway. But this time I think we hit them. They will.
They will.
We hit them because this event was completely booked through Facebook. And now we can say we book through Facebook and it works. Fantastic. You all came from Saul Leiter, for Saul Leiter. But still I want to say also a special welcome to Howard Greenberg, who is a very good friend of this museum and has been instrumental in making connections, of course through Bernadette, and also a little bit maybe through Frederick Brenner. And it's very good to tell you, if you didn't buy it yet, Financial Times weekend, this weekend, has a big write-up on Brenner's new project and on Howard Greenberg. So we are in the spotlight. I'm happy you are here. Afterwards, it will not be possible to have your book signed by Saul, but there are stickers in the bookstore ready prepared which you can stick in your book. Maybe in the meantime you change your mind, I don't know. I would like to give Twan Huis and Saul Leiter the floor. Have a very pleasant afternoon.
Hello, welcome again.
Thank you.
Shall I give you the microphone here? We'll just stick it in front of you.
Yes.
We had such a pleasant afternoon in August in your garden. I was being bitten by the mosquitoes that were infesting your garden.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But we had a great conversation, and you showed me the place where you work and live as well, which is the most beautiful apartment in New York City, I think.
Thank you.
Yes. And you told me you hated interviews, so we should not make this an interview, just a conversation, light conversation on Sunday afternoon. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start then. Did you have a pleasant trip to Amsterdam?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did. It was nice. And we got to Hamburg. And then we saw the show. Picasso used to be invited to his retrospectives, and he didn't want to go, and he used to say, but I know them already. And, of course, I must admit that I don't know everything I did. And, I know and I don't know. And when you see a large show with an endless number of things, you are sometimes surprised. I tell people that I'm a very lazy person. In fact, I'm very proud of being very lazy. However, when I see all the work I did, I begin to wonder whether I'm being truthful, that perhaps I'm not as lazy as I think.
You're not lazy. I've seen your work, and it's not only the photographs, it's the paintings as well that are being showed here as well.
Yeah.
Do you like what the Jewish Historical Museum did to your work here? Have you had a chance to look at it already?
Yes, I saw it. I liked it. It's a different show from the one in Hamburg. It's a more intimate show, and I don't know if friendly is the right word, but there's a nice atmosphere to the show, which I like.
Yeah, we were talking in New York about sort of your roots in Amsterdam as well. Your father lived here for...
My father lived in Amsterdam. He was a rabbi, And I remember that he very often talked about Amsterdam with great affection. And I think that he was happy here in a way that he may never have duplicated anywhere else. He had a special affection for it and for the people that he knew, that he worked with at the time.
Did he talk to you about Amsterdam?
Not really, except that I knew a little bit about it. I knew touches of the history of Amsterdam. But anyway, he was very happy here. And so
I was wondering, because he lived in Amsterdam and you are here in a very interesting time now, because we hadn't have a winter like this since, I think, 15 years or 20 years, and the canals are frozen now. Did you have a chance to look in the city?
No, I have
People
a little bit,
okay,
but not a lot. I think that when you come somewhere, you can't really see too much at first. You have to be here for a while. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be here long enough to...
When are you leaving?
Today, I think on Tuesday. Today I was in the Van Gogh Museum, and I was very touched and moved by the paintings of Van Gogh, whose work I've known and been interested in. And of course, it's different when you see the originals. I'm very often struck by how much paint he used in certain of his paintings, and I know that it must have been a money problem, because he really used a lot of paint in certain paintings. Anyway, he was a great artist, which is not a new idea. Of course, some people like to present him as a strange and he's a strange, weird kind of person, and I don't think that's true. It does please the public to think of artists as weirdos, and I don't know why that is, but it seems to be that way.
Try to give an answer to the question, because you say, I don't know why that is, but why do we want to be people like you off a bit, not like us?
Well, maybe because the artist is a talented person. The artist does something that he wants to do, which is rather unusual in the world we live in, because most people are busy doing things they don't like to do. And maybe they punish such a person by endowing him with strange and unusual qualities. I've had friends who were... Lou Fowler is a photographer who's, I think, a very unusual photographer. People like to think of him as being rather odd, strange, weird. As I knew him, he came to my house, he sat looking at books, we talked quietly. He was not what he was meant out to be. So how to explain it, I'm not quite sure how one can explain it.
Have people said it about you as well?
Yes, I think I have from time to time in the course of my life been considered rather odd. I've never understood what is so odd about me. I have breakfast, I take walks. At the moment, I sometimes go to Starbucks. There's a lady in my building who thinks that going to Starbucks is a very bad thing. I'm not quite sure what her anger is with Starbucks. I don't really know In the course of my life, I was involved with two women. One of them, we were together for 44 years, which is not in itself a very common thing. I've aspired to live and to work, and I had an idea that I wanted to pay my light bill, and I thought it would be nice to avoid being dispossessed, and I didn't care for the IRS when they came in and reported to me they were going to throw everything into the street. I thought that was not very pleasant. At the same time, I live in a rather old, nice building with a rather, if I may say so, pleasant apartment, even though some people might consider it disreputable, but there's nothing really disreputable. So, nevertheless, I didn't always fit into a particular kind of role that people felt comfortable with. Even when I was very young, of course, I was in the yeshiva, and I was in a school where I was not particularly happy. Some people thought of me as strange. I suppose if you're in the yeshiva and you're unhappy and you're not thrilled with the studies that you are involved with, it's natural for people to think that you are strange.
And did you like that position, to be looked upon as strange and odd?
I didn't particularly cultivate the notion. Well, I mean, what did I do? I wore clothes that were, I don't recall that I adopted strange exterior. I didn't have a beard. I had reasonably normal haircuts.
But in the eyes of your father, you chose for the wrong profession, right?
Well, my father's not a proper judge, if I may say so, in spite of my affection for him, for what is normal, because what is normal in his world is very odd. The Orthodox religion, the Orthodox customs are not considered in certain circles to be the epitome of normalcy. And so, but I like to work, I like to paint, I like to photograph.
Do you remember the first time when you took a camera and decided or felt, this is my life for the rest of the time that I'm here?
I don't think I did that. I stumbled into everything that I did, and I was not that definite about anything. I had a friend, when I was very young, I nagged my mother for a camera, which she finally bought for me. And my mother was the one who had no objection to my occasionally being amusing or amused by certain things. My father was not favorably inclined.
He hated it, didn't he?
He didn't care for certain things.
No.
And when he saw that I was going, well, it's understandable. A man who grows up in a certain tradition, who comes from a family that goes back hundreds of years with different sorts, who's, to him, it's understandable. In fact, I felt sympathy for my father, that he was confronted with this difficult creature that made no sense to him. On the other hand, I've been told by people who knew him that he hid that he actually hid the high regard he had for me.
How? What did he, where did he store his regard for you?
He stored it between the pages of some Talmudic work. Anyway.
He had photographs of you, and he saw them, and he liked them, or?
No, he didn't. I once, when I was very young, took a picture of my father. He was wearing underwear, I think, what do they call them, a union suit. He was sitting somewhere, and he always had a book or a sefer, or he had something he was looking at. And I took a picture of him. When he saw it, he was not very happy because he felt it was improper, not dignified, not the way he wished to be seen. But then, recently a book came out, and Adam Levy, my friend, I was reading the book, and I was trying to decide how to kick him.
Why?
He starts out by, I'm in the kitchen, and I come out like a turtle. So as I read this, I thought to myself, what's this business with comparing me to a turtle? Then he pointed out in the course of the article that I like to read when I'm in the toilet.
Who doesn't?
I am, but the thing is this, it never occurred to me that he was going to write about it, you see. He has a tendency to, anyway, there's a whole article. I feel sometimes when I'm being questioned and being interviewed that I'm being robbed of a certain kind of privacy. Before I achieved a little bit of renown, whatever I mean by that, no one paid too much attention to what I said, what I thought, what I did. And the moment you get this kind of attention, people start asking questions. Why did you do that? What do you think of when you're about to take a photograph? What do you think? What are you doing? Do you care about, what about progress? Someone asked me recently, had I measured the progress I was making between the first early fashion pictures and the later ones? And I told him it never occurred to me to think about progress.
But it sounds like you're telling us that you basically stumble into everything and don't give it a thought. Well, if you look at your work, it clearly has a great vision.
When I say I stumble, I mean I'm not like, I have met children who at the age of 8 or 9, someone wants to become a doctor. Someone wants to do this. Someone is already inclined in the direction of scientific business. When I was young, I assumed, unfortunately, maybe I would have to be a rabbi, but then as I got older and realized that I didn't believe in it, the religious life very often has people in it who don't really believe in what they are practicing. And
Catholic priests, we had lots of stories about them.
Well, you have stories about Catholic priests, but recently you had stories about rabbis who are abusing children, which I found that even though I have separated myself to some extent from that world, the thought that rabbis are capable of abusing children, just too much to accept.
Because they are from your tribe that you not longer belong to, but you couldn't believe that it was happening in your group as well? Or?
Yeah, well, it just seemed, how could that be possible? And then it turns out it is possible. an Orthodox Jew, recently killed a little boy that he caught up with, and that he did something that is far more, chopped him up. Now, how can you understand such a thing? How can you digest such a thing?
You have never, we were talking in New York about people who more or less told you, but Saul, you don't show us the real world. You don't show us poverty in New York. And you said something to me that will stuck in my head forever. I think it was, happiness is looked down upon.
That's true.
Misery is in style, you said.
Misery is in style, and wretchedness is... In the world of photography, there are certain traditions. Some of the great American photographers are the Depression photographers, and what they were showing was not happiness. And yet they're some of the greatest photographers. Lewis Hine was showing children at work, even though Lewis Hine tends not to be as morbid. Morbidity is sometimes also an element in certain kinds of photographs. I don't know why, and maybe not too long ago, well, when I was in Hamburg, the man who designed the book was in the bookstore. He was looking at a photograph of two fat women who were excessively fat. Not just fat, but
Super fat.
super duper fat, freakishly fat. So I said to him, "That's not very pleasant." And he looked at me and he said, "Why?" He said, "That's life." I said, "That's your idea of life?" He said, "Yes." It's a part of life.
So why is it that you...
Well, not everything that's a part. We don't eat horse shit, even though in certain places it's very common.
Really?
No.
I don't know these places, but... but let me